We're live. Let's do it. Hello, everybody. My name is Marco Matos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Adora. Thank you for joining us. 10:30 in the morning Pacific time, 1:30 afternoon East Coast time. Super excited to be with you all today and those watching on demand. We're going to be hosting a series of executive conversations with some industry leaders around innovation, marketing, and of course, our favorite topic, AI. Today, I'm incredibly fortunate to be welcoming on a Halloween day, Emily Cohen of Pernod Ricard. Emily leads global innovation for some illustrious brands such as Jameson, Absolut, and many, many others. Emily, welcome and thank you for joining us on this Friday.
Thank you. And hopefully this topic isn't too scary for everyone, despite today.
I love it. You had to do it. Emily, let's just jump in. You know, we're at a moment where everybody's trying to separate what's real around AI, fact and fiction, right? I'm curious from your perspective, you have a diverse background, you've seen many different cycles in marketing. How are you approaching this moment? How are you helping your teams around innovation think about what's real and what's not?
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that I've seen the cycles, and every time a new tool comes on, there's so much excitement around it. But we want to be careful to explore it and to make sure that we understand all that it's capable of, but stay true to our business instincts and the challenges and the problems and not get carried away by what it can do, by what we need it to do. But by what we need it to do. So I think for me, it's really taking a look at this as a tool and looking at it through the lens of what can it help me with that I'm already trying to tackle to increase productivity or synergy or pulling all of the information together and improving the speed and scale of what I can analyze and synergize in a short period of time. So I think it's not letting the potential run away with my reality, because that just gets overwhelming very quickly. And it also just starts, we could test in every direction, but that starts to pull our focus and we may or may not be able to move forward correctly. So really focusing on what we're trying to do and how can it help us do better at those serious business challenges, helping us to answer the questions that are already on our table. And while we learn, then understanding what it can do for us next.
Emily, that was incredibly insightful. There are a lot of nuggets that I want to pull apart there for our conversation, if I may. You talked a lot about focus. You talked a lot about business problems. I'm curious, in an earlier conversation you and I had, you mentioned there's a lot of investment around the prototyping and the research. And I'm curious around the strategic efforts you're bringing from a transformation and innovation lens. How are you seeing your teams adapting? Where are you seeing it work really well? And where do you still see it to be a little unproven?
Yeah, and I think this is a great example of exactly what I was just saying. So for something like ideation, AI is a huge help for pulling together trends, to looking at competitors' activities, to understanding what is out there for information in the marketplace and pulling that into our sphere of vision and making it usable, making it understandable and helping us to combine it in ways that we might not have realized before. That's an incredible time saver. And it's really helpful at analyzing and pulling all of that data and helping us to apply that to move forward. So one thing you and I spoke about the other day as we were prepping for this talk is for ideation, I can probably get 80% of the ideas that I'll get in a full day ideation in 20 minutes from an AI engine. That said, that doesn't mean I'm done there, right? Because it's the next 20% and the recombination of those 80% that's going to help us get that last mile and going to help really create the distinction for my team and my brands in the marketplace. Because otherwise, I'm going into the same information with, I've got the same information in the same market and dynamic as everyone else, and we're all working from the same tool. So the thing that really makes the difference is the way we recombine it and that element that we can add in that last moment. So it's really helpful at our basic business problem of pulling together all of this information to understand what's now, what's next, what are we seeing, how does it all fit together, and helping us to analyze it and curating it for that point of view. What we're looking forward to and what we're still testing, because I don't know that it's quite there yet, are all of these possibilities that AI has in breaking down a lot of the ways we can evaluate our new ideas and our new products, a lot of the ways we can test them. So whether that is taking tons of input on the sensory analysis of a liquid to understand what the market opportunity might be, what consumers are responding to, how my liquid might stack up, or looking at how to create a much more scalable focus group to create a quali-quant kind of scenario through the use of digital twinning or personas. They're not quite perfect yet, but they're useful to help us get there. But I wouldn't say that we're going to come out of any of this with, oh, it gave us the answer. Here's the answer. We can go to market with that. There's still the element of this is a tool, and we are the people who have to use that. So that training to be able to let it do that baseline work for you and continue to advance with us and incorporate it more and more as the tools get more sophisticated, as the data is there that they are able to do it. But right now, some of that is still in the test phase. It's excited to see what we can do with it. And, it's really interesting. It's great to test. I just wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket just yet.
Well said. I think, we're on the front lines here and we're seeing some really cool technology and innovation happen. And I think you're right. There's more to come. I'm curious, and we're definitely going to come back to the 80-20. You said that to me, my mind blew the last time I heard it, and we're definitely coming back to that.
I'm an old baby. We like to 80-20 everything.
It's helpful. It's great. I'm curious. Listen, everybody has read by now the MIT report. 95% of pilots fail. I think McKinsey and Wharton put out reports that 2025 was a year of AI experimentation. Across your brands, I'm curious, just be honest, be direct, maybe a little spicy on Halloween. Why are pilots flopping? What's going on? And specifically, why are the 5% sticking? And what's your advice to others as they think about the investments that they're thinking about making in this space?
I think there's a couple of reasons, really. And if you break it down, number one is expectations. What are we expecting from this pilot? And I think sometimes we expect it to just give us the answers. I'm taking back to the days of early video when my boss came to me and said, we need to create a viral video. And as marketers, we've all been there. And that's just not how you go there. You create an emotional, engaging story, and you hope there's a hook, and you hope it hits, and then it can go viral. But it's, there are formulas, there are people who can tell you they can do it, but aiming for that versus aiming for that true business answer, I think we need to set our expectations appropriately and understand how it's going to feed into our process. Second, I think is engagement and really the time and resource, both mental, organizational, the support internally to be able to truly give it the kind of focus it needs to carry it forward to that next step. It's vital. And often there are so many things going on in an organization that must be done, that the potential and test of something that we're testing doesn't always get the kind of focus and attention it might need to. And that third is just time. Honestly, when we're piloting, making sure that we have the time to recognize, are we answering and addressing the right business question? What are we doing with that? How are we supporting it? How are we proceeding it? When we get the answers out the other side, what are we doing with that? Often I find we do a test and then we haven't really thought about that next step. And so, or analyzing it, it's kind of a gut feel, or a few folks who are involved in the test and we get together and do a debrief and say, yeah, I think that's interesting. But we don't have the time necessarily always to really focus and debrief and understand how can this be applied. And some of this, by the way, is also just the hype around AI. There's so much potential, don't get me wrong, but everyone is trying to jump on the bandwagon. Every tool that comes across my desk these days has an AI component. And the trick is really understanding what I need and how to keep my world contained so that I can see progress, because otherwise we're all over the place. So trying to stay focused, trying not to let the hype run away with us, and really let things develop, because some of my vendors are trying to get out of the gate so quickly that the promise is exceeding the reality right now. And that's fine. We're early days. But as a busy marketer, you can't do everything. You really need to focus where you can. You want to test, you want to be aware, you want to play around, but you need to be able to manage that pipeline, that developmental flow, so that you're not all over the place and you can show forward momentum and real results and KPIs that help lead to that next project.
There's two things you said there that I completely agree with, and I'm the technologist, right? But this idea of emotional storytelling still being a human required role, if you will, I think there's a lot there, and I think we're often losing that in the AI hype. To your point, I think these other piece of having a specific business problem, as you outlined, for the focus, but more importantly, the success criteria. We see this a lot with our pilots. It's like, hey, we can do anything, but let's really focus on the business problem that you care about. Because to your point, you're super busy. You have so many priorities. You've got to really focus with you and your team. And I want to go back to that first point. I keep hearing the AI is taking our jobs or AI is making creative obsolete. And I personally think that's absolutely ridiculous. What are you seeing? And let's hear from the brand's perspective.
Yeah, well, when I've been attending a lot of AI seminars in the last few months, and it's really taking over. I'm hearing a lot of CMOs and VPs and marketers in general just overwhelmed and unsure of where to even begin and how to get there. And yes, there is a little bit of fear behind it in terms of what do I need to know so that I don't get replaced. But the challenge here is that it's a productivity tool. And who is that making more productive? Your experienced and good, solid performers. So the folks who can use it as a tool. For me right now, the gains are productivity. If I set a goal that I want to save money on producing content, absolutely. If I can save dollars, that's a great KPI. But if I produce content at a much lower cost, but it's not working, that's a lousy KPI. It's incentivizing the wrong action. So for me, it's a much more of a what am I really trying to do, and what's the right metric to actually measure that and drive the design of my project and how I move forward. And hopefully, as I move forward, one of the secondary byproducts of that is absolutely I'll save time and money. But right now, I want it to do what I need to do better and faster, but I still need to have that human oversight. We were discussing that last 20%, and I think a key to it is really our humanity. I don't think AI is in danger of replacing us just yet. It's a personal opinion, because I believe absolutely that mix of human irrationality. Someone the other day mentioned in a seminar I was in that AI is not creative, it's the human that brings the creativity to it. I think that may change. It's evolving as we speak, but it really runs from pattern recognition. So it's creative based on what has come before and how it can iterate those patterns going forward, versus humans being totally irrational and able to combine things in new ways and take experiences and ideas that you wouldn't necessarily put in a data set for an AI query and come up with an idea. There are some very old entertainment examples that I just think are amusing. And one I use in my classes is, if you remember Working Girl, the movie with Meg Ryan, the way she comes up with the merger target is she's reading page 6 about a wedding of this industry titan, and the next page is about a DJ and something he's doing, and she makes the connection between that industry titan, that media titan, and radio. And it is the idea that everything hinges upon. And it's this totally unexpected clash of ideas that creates that incredible moment. There's another moment in Friends. This is not a successful one, but it's really funny when Rachel's cooking for Thanksgiving and she's, the pages in her magazine are stuck together and she combines a trifle with some meat dish. Now, Joey thought it was good, but these kinds of ideas where things are just irrational, you wouldn't normally combine. AI is going to be great at doing that solid research, combining whatever I load in, the data sets, analyzing it, helping me to see trends, putting it all together. And that's why it can get me 80% of the way there. But taking it that next 20%, that's still a human endeavor. And the folks that can use it in the right way to help themselves start on that 80-yard line are the folks that are going to be succeeding in the new marketing world.
I couldn't agree more. We're also seeing this in engineering. It's you take a superstar engineer and you make them 100x more productive, but it requires a superstar engineer still. I love that. I'm so fascinated, especially when you talked about not sacrificing quality, but still having KPIs around cost cutting. We think a lot about speed of culture, but ensuring that you cannot move the bar down. The bar continuously has to raise, especially around brand authenticity. And a lot of the work that you're doing with some of the most iconic brands, especially in your industry. You know, in that last 20%, you have that quote, 20% is humanity, and humanity is imperfect. And I think that's the genius of humans. Where are you seeing, beyond the concepting and through the ideation, where are you seeing humans really lean in beyond the sort of the first 80%? So walk me through what that last 20% is in terms of how teams are working together, the imperfect process, and still leveraging the platform and tools out there to make them more productive, as you said.
Sure. Well, I think we leverage it at the beginning. As I said, we can feed all of the trends in, we can feed all of the data in, we feed our brand guardrails in. You know, one of the things we have to be careful of is that we are shaping this for an authentic experience and idea that comes out of my brand, that lives within our world and carries that essence forward in a distinctive way. So it can't just be anything. And AI will still hallucinate and it'll give me answers that just don't fit. So it's that judgment. But it will give us, as I said, 80% of those ideas. If I'm looking at a new flavor, I can get the trending flavors from AI in 10 minutes. If I spend an hour or two at the beginning of an ideation, now I might still need to do that to break the ice, to get the juices flowing. But then we can look at that list, make sure that we're not missing anything. Someone can put it into AI while we're meeting and say, hey, bring out some things that we might be missing, and we can get to that next step. It can help us analyze. It can help us prototype. So we'll look at sample packaging. We'll look at sample ideas or mood boards and how they come to life. But here's the challenge. AI will create something that is almost perfect based on design principles. Now let's put, uncanny valley aside and 6 fingers on a hand and all of those mistakes. Their design principles are still going to be coming out of theory, so perfect theory. Whereas our eyes and our emotions are not triggered by perfection. They're actually driven by that imperfection. They're driven by all sorts of cues throughout our life that have created a moment around that visual perception, around what we're taking in and thinking. So that human overlay, AI can give me 10 different packages to look at, but my team and I need to go in and determine which ones work for the brand, which ones work in this context best. How does this one look versus that one? There is a judgment there. And I can test the perfect AI model next to the one we've picked. And, you can test to get any result you want, but the one that will truly succeed is the one that touches people. And right now, that emotion is really driven by that last mile of humanity.
You talk a lot about judgment and humans sort of owning this. We call this human in the loop, where the AI is allowing you to be faster. It gives you more ideas. But at the end of the day, you have to approve. You have to make the decision. You also use a favorite word of mine because it's become such a hot topic, this idea of authenticity. In a world of AI, people see the AI slop, they see the AI, I call it the gloss. How do you maintain authenticity and not just see the world, create a content machine, because making content's so easy, but to your point earlier, lowers the bar. So how do you work with your teams and your other partners around maintaining authenticity?
Yeah, authenticity is key, and it's really relating on a real level. So if I run away with just the perfect information that comes off of a page, it doesn't feel authentic. It's just being spit out to me. What I need to do is really engage those guardrails and parameters, the world my brand lives in, and make sure that it's touching that in a real way. And it's not just a surface veneer. We all know that content that we see online where someone's gone into an AI engine and it's spit out 7 versions of the same short blog post, and they've got one for LinkedIn and one for Reddit and one for something else. And it doesn't sound like them because it all sounds the same. And this isn't unique to AI. This is just trend driven. And as our trends and the recommendation engines tend to center more and more in on the most common results, we're training them towards that common line. And what I'm looking for authentically from the brand is something that's not as common. It's unique to my brand. So it's driven by that trend, but it feels more natural to the brand versus anybody could have done this, which is what those patterns and trends tend to drive us to. If you've gone through your feed, my Instagram feed is full of style influencers and they all look very similar. The same product is being touted, and it's lost some of that engagement because I just don't see individuality in it. And that draw is making it fall flat for me. So authenticity in my brands is that individuality and distinctiveness that makes that brand that brand. All of my brands have a personality. All of them have an identity. And I can't lose that in the combination of just trusting AI for the product. Now, AI can tee it all up for me. It's fabulous at launching us, driving an outline, giving me some place to start so I'm not just stuck at a blank page. It's great at editing. I can bring it back in and it can shoot a million things back at me, feedback. But if you sit with someone you trust and you get feedback on a document, I guarantee you don't take everything they say and make those changes. Yet people are somehow handing this over to AI and trusting the computer must be right. And we all know it's not always right.
It's not always right. And more importantly, to your point, it's not always authentic. It's not unique to what you want to show up, whether it's your voice as a writer or as a brand and what you want to represent. And, we hear this feedback a lot with our customers from other tools that they've used, where it's like, I get generic in, I get generic out. And we think a lot about this in terms of the brand DNA, which is, from Adora's point of view, the only way that this is going to work in production as a platform. You also mentioned a lot of things AI can be helpful for. I love that editor analogy. I don't take everything my editor says. I use those as inputs. But you're seeing a lot of time savings where AI can be applied. Can you unpack a little bit more around where do you think is durable and what's sticky from that AI lens, where you think those quick movements or the work that we don't really necessarily want to go do or you don't need to go do, where are you seeing that pop up?
Well, so far it's research, it's analysis, it's curation and editing to get us further down the field. It's recombination. So if I want to personalize, I saw a great example at a seminar last week that was on Next Gen and the Gen AI roadmap, sponsored by AWS, where they were showing personalization on ads. Now, you could have 100 ads all personalized for the end user because you have that information and you have all of the assets that you've produced that can be recombined in the right way. So maybe you have, this example was a dog in front of a park and it was advertising dog food. So you have a dog that appeals, the same breed as the owner you're looking at, in a park that might look like a park close to their home. And you can create these assets. By the way, ethically, create all of the raw assets with your human collaborators, not just drawing on stock photography and all of things out there. Yes, does that save time and money? But you're going to get that same baseline kind of feel and energy as everyone else. Whereas if we create our asset and our content engine, and then we have AI help us recombine that in a number of different ways, it can match and create much faster to personalize once I've created the template. And then I can do a QA before it goes out. That's all really interesting and really helpful for it to do. So that, again, that productivity, that speed, that scale of what I can produce so quickly, it can analyze and activate based on a rule if I'm doing advertising and optimize. Now, again, performance marketing has in the past gotten us into some trouble when you don't have all of the guardrails in there that you need to. There's an old example from one of the athletic companies. I won't embarrass it by saying it here, but I speak about it in my classes, where they had optimized to conversion so well that they were doing fantastic on the KPIs for performance marketing and against all of those rules. The challenge being that there was not a branding sequence and guardrail in the process. So they were doing a ton more conversions, a lot more sales, but a lot more customers were one-time purchases on sale because that's what was converting, and they optimized to that. Their brand value suffered, their long-term consumer lifetime value suffered, and they had to go back and fix it. And the CMO was big enough to admit this publicly and say, we've got to refocus. And it was an incredible moment of vulnerability that I love, because when you can admit your mistakes, you can help everyone understand how to experiment and drive further.
That was amazing. I know the exact example you're talking about. And it's funny, I think people often forget technology is really good as a hammer if it's a nail, meaning whatever KPI you give it to optimize towards, it'll do it, but it'll do it really, really well. Everything else be damned. And if you don't have those guardrails, if you don't have the things you really care about, especially if you think about LTV, you think about repeat purchasers, you don't want to churn your customer, you want to develop that relationship. It's really, really important. This is a great segue into our last topic. I know we only have a few minutes left. Everybody's in planning, right? It's October 31st. We're thinking about 2026. And you said it earlier, right? Every day you get a tool that's told, hey, AI is going to save your life today. Give us a little bit of a framework in terms of where do you think, or how are you trying to cut through the noise? What are you actually wanting to test? How do you decide what to invest? What's your filter? And I love this framing earlier, which is like, how do you avoid just chasing the shiny object and focusing on real business problems for your organization?
But it's hard when you're in an organization to avoid chasing the shiny object because you have lots of senior managers and CMOs and management out there that are hearing about potential, and they want to make sure that they're implementing as well, because we're all hearing it and we're all faced with the same inputs. That said, really focusing and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what business challenge are we addressing and how can we get there step by step. Let's test and learn. Let's push it forward, but let's embrace what we're doing. Even if it's a small step forward, that might be what's right for my organization, to get that right and then keep moving forward, to make sure that we're hitting the KPIs and I'm not just wasting resource, time, money, people hours on something that isn't going to prove useful in the end, even if it fails. If things that fail can be incredibly useful at helping me to focus. So I'm really right now starting from my business challenge, starting from my problem that I want to be better at, more productive at, more scaled at, and looking for the tools that will help me do that in a much more efficient way. And then what the second filter that I'm using is really the relationships. So if I'm looking for partners in this, I want partners who are not over-promising, but who are being honest about the possibilities and how we're going to get there together. I want them to truly walk me through what we're going to get out of this so that we can go down that road together, because working with me on a very real level is going to get us that next step. But I need to understand what we can truly get and what we need to put in to get that out. And let's create a roadmap. This is not a 1 month thing. This is, what do we do now? What does that teach us? What's happening in the future? And there's way too much happening right now. Even folks, now I'm going to admit at the very end of this call, I don't know everything about AI. I have to trust my partners who are in this every day in their specific niches. Isn't that way business? That's the way business always works. If you're the leader, you can't do everything. You have to surround yourself with trusted partners who you trust to bring that specific expertise to you. And that's what I'm looking for in my partners, because I can't keep up with everything that's happening. Some of them can't keep up with everything that's happening. And the ones who admit it to me are the ones I trust more.
I'm a product guy through and through. You said my favorite buzzword, roadmap. I couldn't agree more. We think a lot about co-developing with our partners. What are the business challenges? What are the commonalities of those problems? But it is a journey, because the reality is the rules of AI have not fully been written out, and we're all living that change together. And having that partnership in working through that evolution together, I think, is super important. Okay, we're almost at time. I'm going to start winding us down. I have a ton of other questions I didn't get to ask, so maybe we have to do a part 2, not on Halloween. Emily, somebody's going to chase you down in the street and say, Emily, I've got 5 seconds. I'm a marketing executive. I'm a CMO at a brand. Like, help me. What do I got to test? Give me one thing I got to test, and then give me something I just completely stop worrying about and just ignore.
My team hates this habit of mine, but I can't answer that because I answer that question with a question. I can't tell you what to test until I understand what's important to you. What's your biggest problem right now? What's your biggest challenge to your goals right now? And then we can focus on what to test and start to build that. But right now, I think it's really focusing on where you are and how to move forward versus losing your focus amongst all of the shiny new objects, as you said before, that are out there dangling for you to just grasp and get lost in. And the more overwhelmed we feel, the more we don't move forward at all. So the more you can recognize that, by the way, all of your peers are feeling that same overwhelm. There's just way too much going on right now to keep track of, to try to test it all. But focusing and controlling your step forward, your roadmap, your progress towards your goal is going to help you corral that to understand what to test and what to ignore. Saying no is the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge in anyone's life, but especially in marketing. We're used to this. There are tons of opportunities to partner, to promote our brand, to get involved every day that come at us, but you have to filter them by what's actually going to drive your brand plan, what's going to drive your bottom line, what's going to help you get more customers, drive your penetration, improve your reach, drive folks through that journey and funnel in the right way. And once you know where you're focusing, the answers all start to lay themselves out.
Emily, I appreciate the vulnerability. I agree. Every marketer is dealing with the same thing. And at Adora, we host a lot of events and intimate moments where we see marketers sharing stories like this. So thank you for sharing the story. I think everybody's got to remember, focus on business problems, ask with the resources you have. And Emily, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Everybody who joined our live, thank you again. We'll share out more materials and links to the studies that we referenced today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks so much, Marco.